Welcome to Moonlight Tales, where we share folk tales full of wisdom, magic, and imagination. Please like, comment and subscribe for more interesting stories. Chapter 1. Amina and Ton were the talk of Lagos. Their upcoming wedding was the most anticipated social event. Everyone admired their perfect love. He was a wealthy oil mogul. She was a poised architect. They were the ideal couple, a match made in heaven. Their engagement party was lavish and extravagant. Guests marveled at their undeniable chemistry. Ton held Amina's hand throughout the night. Their smiles seemed to light up the whole room. They were a portrait of absolute happiness. Yet, a secret lay hidden from the public eye. A secret place where their true hearts met. This place was Ton's private estate, far from prying eyes. It was a beautiful, lush paradise he created. The secret was their midnight garden. It was a secluded, magical space. It was full of rare, fragrant flowers and ancient trees. It was their sanctuary, their sacred place. This was where they shared their most intimate moments. The garden was a world of their own. It was a testament to their deep connection. Their love, they believed, was as unique as the garden itself. It was a love story that would soon be tested. Chapter 2. The night air in the garden was thick and heavy. A symphony of crickets played in the background. Amina traced patterns on Ton's hand. He spoke of his dreams for their future. He wanted to build an empire. He envisioned a life full of luxury and happiness. A future where they would want for nothing. Amina listened, her eyes fixed on his. She nodded in agreement, a small smile on her face. Her own dreams were less about wealth. Her dreams were about something else entirely. Something she couldn't share. She felt a twinge of guilt as Ton spoke. His honesty and vulnerability were both a comfort and a curse. She loved him, but a part of her felt trapped. A warm breeze rustled the leaves around them. The scent of jasmine filled the air. This was their ritual. Every few nights, they would sneak out here. They would talk for hours under the moon. This was their world. Amina stole a quick glance at her phone. A message from Kihind was waiting. She quickly tucked her phone away. Ton was too engrossed in his dreams to notice her distraction. Chapter 3. Kihind, Amina's best friend, was a constant presence. She was always by Amina's side. They had been inseparable since university. Kihind was her confidant and emotional rock. People often joked that they were twins. Kihind's support was unwavering. She helped plan the wedding down to the smallest detail. She gushed about how lucky Amina was. She constantly praised Ton's generosity and kindness. She was the perfect friend. Amina relied on her friend for everything. Kihind was the one person she could talk to. She would listen to Amina's deepest fears. She was always there to offer advice. Their bond seemed unbreakable. But a keen observer might notice a subtle change. A small, strange look in Kihind's eyes. A flicker of something that wasn't quite happiness. It was a fleeting, almost undetectable expression. It was gone as quickly as it came. It was a look of deep-seated envy. Envy of the life Amina was about to have. A life of comfort and endless possibility. A life that Kihind could never have on her own. Chapter 4. Lekon, Ton's rival, was a storm cloud on the horizon. His business dealings were often at odds with Ton's. They competed for the same contract and clients. Their rivalry was well known in Lagos. It was a tense and often bitter feud. Lekan was just as ambitious and driven as Ton. He was handsome, but in a brooding, intense way. He watched Ton and Amina from afar. His gaze lingered on Amina a little too long. His animosity towards Ton was obvious. People assumed it was just business. They believed his dislike was purely professional. No one suspected a deeper, more personal reason. They were all wrong. Lekan's interest in Amina was not a secret. It was a silent obsession. He had known Amina before she met Ton. He had a brief, forgotten crush on her. Seeing her with Ton reignited his feelings. It fueled his desire for revenge. He wanted what Ton had. He wanted to tear Ton's world apart. He wanted to win everything. This included Ton's future bride. Lekan schemed, his mind a web of deceit. He would wait for the perfect opportunity to strike. Chapter 5. Amina felt a growing unease. The perfect facade was starting to crack. The pressure of the wedding was immense. Her happiness felt manufactured. She had a secret that weighed on her. She had to meet with Kihind in secret. They would talk on the phone in hushed tones. They would make plans when Ton was away. Amina felt like she was living a double life. The Midnight Garden used to be a sanctuary. Now it felt like a cage. She couldn't shake the feeling of being trapped. She loved Ton, but was she in love with him? She was wrestling with her own truth. The truth was a heavy burden. It was a secret that could ruin everything. Not just her life, but the lives of those around her. The closer the wedding came, the heavier the burden became. Kihind's messages were becoming more frequent. Her tone was more demanding. She was pushing for something. Something Amina wasn't ready to give. It was a perilous game they were playing. Chapter 6. One night, Ton found a small, embroidered handkerchief. It wasn't Amina's. It had a strange floral pattern. It was tucked away in a drawer he hadn't opened before. His heart sank with a chilling dread. It was a delicate piece of fabric. The scent of an unfamiliar perfume clung to it. He brought it to his nose. It was not Amina's perfume. He felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. Who did this belong to? His mind raced with suspicion. He thought of Lekan, his fierce rival. Was Lekan trying to get to him through Amina? Was this a symbol of a secret, shared love? The possibility was unbearable. He decided not to confront Amina. Not yet. He wanted to gather more information. He would watch her, observe her every move. He would find out the truth, whatever it may be. The perfect love story was starting to unravel. He hid the handkerchief in his safe. He would wait for the right moment. The trust he had in Amina was starting to crumble. A new game of deception had begun. And Ton was a player. Chapter 7. Amina felt Ton's distance. He was more quiet than usual. He seemed to be observing her. His eyes followed her across the room. She felt a prickle of unease. Did he know something was wrong? He wasn't angry, but he was guarded. He no longer shared his dreams freely. He would ask questions. Questions about her day, her friends, her whereabouts. His questions felt like accusations. She felt like a suspect. She tried to be more affectionate. She tried to make him feel secure. But it was a futile effort. The wall between them was growing taller. The love they once shared was becoming a shadow. She knew she had to come clean. But she didn't know how. How could she tell him the truth without breaking his heart? The truth would shatter his perfect world. She couldn't bear to hurt him. She would try one last time to make things right. She would try to be the perfect bride. She would suppress her feelings for the sake of their future. But a part of her knew it was too late. The damage was already done. Chapter 8. Kehind was becoming more brazen. She would call Amina late at night. She would send provocative messages. Messages that made Amina's heart pound. Messages that reminded her of their secret. She insisted on meeting alone. She chose the most secluded places. She would stare at Amina with an intensity that was unsettling. She would talk about their secret. She would hint at the future they could have. Amina felt cornered. She wanted to postpone the wedding. But she couldn't. Ton's family was very traditional. Any change of plans would bring a lot of shame. She felt the weight of expectation. Kehind was oblivious to Amina's turmoil. She was consumed by her own desires. She was convinced that Amina felt the same. She believed their love was stronger than anything else. She thought their love was worth fighting for. She was willing to risk everything. Amina, however, was terrified of the fallout. She was afraid of the scandal, the shame, and the heartbreak. Chapter 9. Ton made a call to his private investigator. He needed to know the truth. He told the investigator to follow Amina. He wanted to know who she was meeting. He wanted proof of her betrayal. The investigator was a seasoned professional. He had a reputation for discretion. He was a silent shadow, a ghost in the city. He would uncover the truth, no matter how ugly. He was very good at his job. Ton felt a sense of relief. The waiting was agony. The suspicion was eating him alive. He needed to confirm his fears. He needed to know for sure. He would have his answer soon. He hoped for a miracle. He hoped his fears were unfounded. He hoped the handkerchief was a random object. He hoped he was wrong about everything. He wanted to believe in their love. But a part of him knew better. The evidence was right in front of him. The subtle changes in Amina's behavior. The late-night calls. The secret she was keeping. He was ready for the truth, no matter the cost. Chapter 10. The investigators' report started coming in. They were short and to the point. He had followed Amina everywhere. He had taken pictures of her meetings. The pictures were all with Kehind. Ton was confused. He expected to see a man. He expected to see Lekan. But the pictures showed only Amina and Kehind. They were sitting at cafes, laughing. They were walking through parks, holding hands. He dismissed the findings. He thought it was a distraction. He believed Lekan was the real culprit. He thought Kehind was just a smokescreen. His mind refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. He instructed the investigator to dig deeper. He wanted to know about Lekan. He was convinced that Laken was involved. He was sure that Laken was manipulating Amina. He was blind to the truth. He clung to his own assumptions. He was looking for a specific type of betrayal. He was looking for a man. He was looking in the wrong place. And the truth was about to hit him. Chapter 11. The night of the big reveal was a night like any other. The moon was full, casting a silver glow. Ton was at a business dinner. He excused himself early. He had a premonition. He knew where Amina was. He had a tracker on her phone. She was at the Midnight Garden. He felt a cold rage. This was it. He would confront her. He would get his answers. He drove to his estate in a frenzy. He parked his car far from the garden. He crept through the bushes. He wanted to catch them in the act. He wanted to see his rival with her. His heart pounded against his ribs. He imagined the worst. He imagined seeing Laken with her. He imagined his world shattering. He was ready for a fight. He was ready to end it all. He reached the edge of the garden. He could see two figures. They were standing close to each other. He took out his phone. He was going to take a picture of them. He was going to get his proof. Chapter 12. He raised his phone, his finger on the button. The moonlight illuminated the figures. He saw Amina's face clearly. Her eyes were closed. She was smiling, her head resting on a shoulder. He focused the camera. The other figure was tall and slender. The face was unmistakable. His finger froze. It wasn't a man. It wasn't Laken. It was Kehind, her best friend. He felt a wave of confusion. It was followed by a crushing, soul-shattering realization. The betrayal was not what he thought. It was a betrayal far deeper and more shocking. It was a betrayal he couldn't have imagined. He lowered his phone slowly. He didn't need a picture. The image was seared into his mind. He watched as Kehind and Amina shared a kiss. A long, intimate, and passionate kiss. His legs felt weak. He stumbled backward. He leaned against a tree. His perfect world had not just cracked, it had been obliterated. The truth was far more scandalous than he could have ever comprehended. Chapter 13. Amina and Kehind were oblivious. They were in their own world. They were lost in the moment. The secret was out. Ton had seen everything. His heart was broken. His mind was in a haze. He stood there for what felt like an eternity. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. The silence of the garden was deafening. The sweet scent of jasmine now felt like a curse. It was the scent of betrayal. He watched as they walked, hand in hand. They were talking in hushed tones. They were planning their future. They were making promises to each other. Promises that he had once heard from Amina. He felt a surge of rage. How could she? How could they? The two most important women in his life. The two people he trusted the most. They had conspired against him. They had made a fool of him. He was a man who had everything. But in that one moment, he had lost it all. His future, his love, his pride. Everything was gone. He felt a profound, desolate loneliness. He was utterly and completely alone. Chapter 14. He finally found his voice. It was a guttural, wounded sound. He stepped out of the shadows. Amina. His voice was filled with pain and anger. It broke the spell of their secret world. They both froze. They turned to him in unison, their eyes wide with shock and fear. Kehane's hand slipped from Amina's. The secret was no longer a secret. It was a very real, very painful reality. Amina looked at him, her face ashen. Her perfect composure was gone. All that was left was guilt and shame. She knew this day would come. But she had never imagined the pain on his face. Kehane's face was a mask of defiance. She stood her ground, her chin raised. She was ready to fight. She wasn't going to hide anymore. She had wanted this moment. She had wanted to be seen. The Midnight Garden, once a sanctuary of love, was now a battleground. It was a place of broken hearts and shattered dreams. The fight for the truth had begun. And no one would walk away unscathed. Chapter 15. Amina's parents were a force of nature. They were pillars of the community. The news of the cancelled wedding would bring them great shame. They would be mortified. The social fallout would be immense. Ton's family was equally influential. They were not to be trifled with. They were a traditional family. They would see this as a grave disrespect. The scandal would be a stain on their name. The society of Lagos would feast on this. The whispers would turn into roars. The perfect couple would become a punchline. The gossip would be relentless. The scandal would be the talk of the town. Amina's perfect life was over. The future she was building had collapsed. She had sacrificed everything for love. She had betrayed the man who loved her. The cost of her secret was a public one. Kehane's role in the affair would not go unnoticed. She would be blamed. She would be ostracized. But she didn't care. She was willing to pay the price. She was finally free. Chapter 16. The days that followed were a blur of pain. Ton retreated into himself. He locked himself in his study. He refused to see anyone. He couldn't face the world. The humiliation was too much. He replayed the scene in his mind. The stolen glances, the harsh tones, the secret messages. It all made sense now. The lies, the deceit. He had been a fool. He had been so blind. Amina tried to call him. He wouldn't answer. She tried to visit. He wouldn't see her. She tried to apologize. But the words were hollow. The damage was done. There was no going back. Kehane was a rock for Amina. She held her close as she cried. She told her everything would be okay. She was the one who had pushed her. She had been the instigator. She was the architect of their downfall. The Midnight Garden was now a graveyard. A graveyard of broken dreams and shattered trust. The beautiful flowers seemed to wilt. The air was thick with sadness. The magic was gone. Chapter 17. Ton finally emerged from his seclusion. He had a new resolve. He was no longer a victim. He was a man who had been wronged. He would not be pitied. He would not be a fool. He went to his lawyer. He wanted to make sure everything was in order. He would not let this destroy his business. He would not let this ruin his life. He would rise above the ashes. He decided to go public. He would release a statement. A short, to-the-point message. He would not give any details. He would simply announce the cancellation. He would not let them win. Amina's parents were frantic. They tried to save the wedding. They offered to pay Tond. They offered to make amends. But Tond was unmoved. His heart had turned to stone. The love story was over. The fairy tale was a lie. He had to accept the truth. The perfect life was a myth. He had to face reality. He had to start a new chapter. Chapter 18. The news broke like a tsunami. The cancellation was confirmed. The society was in a frenzy. Everyone wanted to know why. The speculations were wild. The gossips were having a field day. Amina's family was in damage control mode. They put up a brave face. They released their own statement. They cited irreconcilable differences. They tried to salvage what was left of their reputation. Kehane's family was equally shocked. They had no idea. They had always seen her as a good girl. They had seen her as a loyal friend. They were now facing their own scandal. Lekan was watching from the sidelines. He was pleased. His rival's world was crumbling. He had not had a hand in it. But he was enjoying the show. He was now free to pursue his own desires. He saw an opportunity. He saw a chance to win. He reached out to Amina. He offered her a new life. A life with him. He was a man with his own agenda. He was just as deceptive as the others. Chapter 19. Amina was in a state of shock. The news was everywhere. She couldn't leave the house. The calls from her friends were relentless. She had become an outcast. The life she once had was gone. Kehane was her only solace. She stayed with her. She cooked for her. She took care of her. She was the only person who understood. She was the only person who was on her side. Amina's parents were in a state of despair. They threatened to disown her. They couldn't believe their perfect daughter. They couldn't accept her secret. They were blinded by shame. Amina was forced to choose. Her family or her love. Her old life or her new one. It was a difficult choice. But a part of her was relieved. The lies were over. The secrets were finally out. She had to make a decision. She had to take a stand. She had to face the consequences. She had to be brave. She had to fight for her own happiness. The perfect facade was no longer an option. Chapter 20. Amina decided to go against her parents. She decided to be with Kehane. She had to follow her heart. She couldn't live a lie anymore. She had to be true to herself. She packed her bags. She left her family home. She left her past behind. She was ready to face the world with Kehane. She was ready to build a new life. A life of their own choosing. Kehane was ecstatic. This was all she had ever wanted. She had been in love with Amina for years. She had been waiting for this moment. She was finally free to be with her love. They found a small, cozy apartment. It was nothing like Ton's luxurious estate. But it was their home. It was a place where they could be themselves. It was their new sanctuary. The scandal was not a curse. It was a blessing in disguise. It had freed them. It had given them a chance to be together. It had given them a chance to find their own happiness. Chapter 21. Laken was rejected. Amina didn't want him. She told him the truth. She was in love with someone else. He was heartbroken. His plan had backfired. He had lost everything. His business rivalry with Ton intensified. He was angry and bitter. He had lost both the girl and the business. He was a man consumed by his own greed. He was a man with nothing left to lose. He tried to expose Amina. He tried to leak the story. But Ton's team was a step ahead. They had already managed the press. The story was sealed. The scandal was buried. Laken was left with nothing. He had gambled and lost. His obsession with Amina was his downfall. He had been so close. But he had been so blind. The prize was never his to win. The rivalry was over. Ton was the victor. He had won the war. But he had lost his heart. The victory felt hollow. The world was cold and grey. He was no longer a man in love. Chapter 22. Amina and Kihine faced a new set of challenges. Their families were unsupportive. Their friends were gone. They had to rely on each other. Their love was their only shield. They had to rebuild their lives from scratch. Amina was no longer an architect. The scandal had cost her. She was a woman with no prospects. She had to find a new path. Kihine was a struggling artist. Her art was her only asset. She used her paintings to express her emotions. She painted the Midnight Garden. She painted their secret love story. The paintings were beautiful. They were filled with passion. They told a story of forbidden love. They were a testament to their love. They were their own private rebellion. The world was against them. But they were together. They had each other. Their love was a bond forged in fire. It was strong and resilient. It was their only hope. Chapter 23. Amina found a new passion. She started a small business. It was a flower shop. She would grow rare and exotic flowers. Flowers she had once seen in the Midnight Garden. She was happy. She was at peace. She was no longer living a lie. She was no longer a fake. She was true to herself. She had found her own identity. She was finally free. Kihine's art was finally noticed. A gallery owner saw her paintings. They were moved by her story. They offered to showcase her work. She was finally getting her due. Her paintings were a sensation. People were intrigued by her story. They were moved by her passion. She became a successful artist. She was an icon of love and rebellion. Amina and Kihine were no longer outcast. They were a success story. They had risen from the ashes. They had found their own path to happiness. Their love had triumphed. Chapter 24. Ton was a changed man. He was no longer a ruthless businessman. He was a man with a heart. He had learned his lesson. He had lost the love of his life. But he had found a new purpose. He devoted his time to charity. He built schools. He built hospitals. He helped the poor. He was a man with a conscience. He was a man who had been humbled. He was a man of integrity. He never remarried. He never loved again. He would often drive by the flower shop. He would watch Amina from afar. He was happy for her. He had found peace with the past. He would sometimes visit the midnight garden. He would walk through the bushes. He would sit under the moon. He would remember the love he once had. He would remember the lessons he had learned. The midnight garden was no longer a graveyard. It was a place of reflection. A place of healing. A place of forgiveness. It was a reminder of a love story that was not meant to be. Chapter 25. Years passed. Amina and Kihind were still together. They were happy. They were a team. They had built a beautiful life together. A life filled with love and laughter. A life of their own making. They would often talk about their past. They would talk about Ton. They would talk about the scandal. They would talk about the midnight garden. It was a memory that they shared. It was a story that they owned. The story was not a scandal. It was a triumph. It was a testament to their love. It was a symbol of their rebellion. It was a story that would be passed down. It was a story of hope. The midnight garden was still a secret. It was a secret that they all shared. It was a secret that had changed their lives. It was a secret that had made them all better people. It was a secret that had set them all free. The end. Thanks for listening to today's folktale. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories next time.